What's up, interweb? RhyQuinn here, and welcome to GBA Season 4 Week 4 recap. And as always, I am joined by Adam from TNA TV.
Hello, hello. This week we're going to do something a little bit different because we kind of missed it. We dropped the ball a little bit last week on the free agents. So we're going to start with the Week 3 free agents going on. We're not really going to go too in-depth with it other than just what kind of got dropped and what got picked up. If you guys want to hear our personal opinions on it, leave a comment below, and maybe we'll try and get a separate video out for it. But with that, do you want to lead into it, Gio? Or wow, Gio.
Gio.
He's on my brain right now because that's gonna be the first battle we're talking about.
I mean, I don't mind being called Gio. That's fine.
He's a good-looking guy. Good-looking guy.
I know, right? So the first one from the Utah Jasmine, they dropped Lucario. Cooper dropping Lucario and picking up Nidoking. And it was quite interesting because, you know, Lucario was, I think it was his MVP, I believe, for his team, which he dropped and got up a Nidoking. I mean, Nidoking's great. Lucario was very good, but yeah, interesting pick.
Definitely. As I just said, we're not going to go too in depth. Gosh,
I know. That's why I'm not saying any more. God.
We have the Winnipeg Aquajets dropping Gardevoir and picking up Umbreon, another kind of supportive mon.
Exactly. The St. Louis Rampardos, Dan A-Drive, dropping Klinklang, picking up Vileplume. Amazing. Klinklang, useless. Vileplume, good.
True. Then we have Old Man Tup with the Piratatas, dropping Rotom normal form and picking up the fairy Aromatisse. Aromatisse is good. It can potentially set up Trick Room stuff for him, for his team, which could be dangerous.
Exactly. And then last but not least for the Week 3 ones, Long Island Regirockies, Nips, dropped Meloetta and picked up Cobalion, which I think was a good pick. Meloetta was kind of redundant on his team, and Cobalion can do things. Yeah.
That's true. I don't care for another steal and another fighting, but we'll get some other time to talk about that potentially.
Yeah.
With that though, we will move on, since we're going to try and keep this a little bit short, and by a little bit short, it's probably going to be at least 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the first battle of the week that we'll talk about, and that is the battle of the 0-3s, the Milwaukee Sawsbucks versus the San Francisco Giants. And one team walked away 1-3, one team walked away 0-4, and the 1-3 was the San Francisco Giants with a 2-0 victory. This was actually a very good battle. It was very close. Steve almost brought it back at the end with the AV Landorus T. He almost brought it all the way back. If he had just gotten a little bit of a better damage roll, he could have potentially won that with HP Fire. It was a really good use of Goodra and Ditto for Geo. He used them really well. I don't think Steve really had brought much of a check for Goodra, and it pretty much ran wild, did a lot of damage to the vast majority of Steve's team. What do you think?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I really like the way Geo used Ditto towards the end, managing to get 2 Intimidates on Landorus itself, transforming into Landorus to get an Intimidate on it. I thought that was really, really clever, really well played on his part. There was a debate as to whether or not Scizor would kill Lando T or not with a Bullet Punch. I don't know. It was a little bit up in the air, but I think, I'm not 100% sure in this, but I think Geo may have been calcing with an Intimidate that Scizor didn't have. I'm not sure. He might have made the same mistake that Steve did against the Mega Pinsir. I'm not 100% sure, because I ran some calcs just out of curiosity on my side, and not 100% sure on the investments and all that stuff, but I think Scizor would have killed with a Bullet Punch. But it doesn't matter. Geo got the win anyway. So yeah, I just think it was very, very well played. I don't have much to add other than what you said. It was just very well prepped on both sides, I think. Both of them prepped very, very well. And yeah, it was a fun match to watch. Very fun match to watch. But with that is the first match from this week. Moving on to the second match. We have the Real Marill against the Cincinnati Loudreds. So we go from the battle of the 0-3s to the battle of the 3-0s. So, which team came away with their first loss? It was in I guess somewhat of an upset. The Real Marill losing the first match this season against the Cincinnati Loudreds. Malvone picking up a 2-0 victory over the Real Marill. And this was a very unfortunate match. It was a good match, very back and forth. and there was a segment in the middle where Miguel was determined to get up Stealth Rocks with a powered on, and Malvone was not letting him, just rapid spinning all day, every day, just not letting him get up rocks. But eventually, he managed to get up the rocks, which apparently was a misclick as he went for the gyrable, I'm not sure. But then he had the sand up with his powered on, went to go and sweep with his Stoutland, which turns out did not have max happiness on return, so it didn't kill Keldeo, and then he just kind of lost. Which was unfortunate. Miguel played really well to get himself into that position, but not taking anything away from Malvone, he did play very well, and I think he's proving why, you know, he's undefeated so far in the GBA. He played very well in my book. Unfortunately, Miguel didn't pick up the win like he wanted to, but you know, it's, well, partially his fault, I guess, that he didn't know that the happiness gets reset when you trade mons, so he didn't have max happiness, and that's I guess what cost him the game, really.
That's very true. For me, I got to give one shout out to Gliscor. Can't say words today. To Gliscor for finally getting Toxic Heal up. I'm just going to say, Malvone led with it, went for Protect on the first turn to make sure that it got it. So, yeah, I'm very happy for Gliscor to get that. But the game really became, okay, what dies to Weevil? Okay, now I'm going to bring in Hydreigon. What dies to Hydreigon? Okay, now I'm going to bring in Weevil again. What dies to Weevil? It became really back and forth to that battle, and there was some great pivot switching by Miguel in there when he took an Icicle Crash with Tentacruel and then doubled out expecting the knockoff to Mega Lopunny. That was a great play, but unfortunately you can't keep doing that, I guess. But yeah, it unfortunately came down to the not knowing the fact that your happiness resets when trading. Again, I'm not positive if he still would have won. I know that there was, I think, 3 mons left potentially that he would need to kill. But Choice Banded Stoutland is not really something to mess with. So,
exactly.
Well, we'll see. With that, by the way, it's really funny to say that 2 3-0 teams going in, and there's a really heavy favorite, and it's almost an upset, even though it's a 3-0 team going against another 3-0 team. So,
exactly.
Yeah. But following up on the upset theme, we move on to the Winnipeg Aquajets versus the Long Island Rockies. The Long Island Rockies looking for their first win, and they find it this week in an astounding 1-0 over Hank. You know, this was another one of those battles where it kind of drew out. There was a long sequence between Amoonguss and Curselax that just seemed to never end. However, it was both of them realizing that they may not have a better play to go into other than just trying to stall out or get rid of curse boosts or rest yourself off to full health. And unfortunately, it came down really to a fully paralyzed Amoonguss in the end that really lost Hank the battle. I mean, that's how it happens. He didn't get paralyzed for, I don't know, like 10 turns in a row. So, you know, at some point it had to happen. But unfortunately, it happened at the most crucial part of the game, and that was when he lost it to Alakazam.
Yeah, completely agree. It was really, really, really unfortunate to see that full paralysis. But as you said, he didn't get paralyzed for a long time, and then he got a few here and there, and then it was on the one turn that he really needed to not be fully powered. It happened. But hey, that's Pokemon. That's what happens. There was also a crit earlier on the Umbreon that meant that it couldn't live a Focus Blast from Alakazam, which meant that Alakazam's Sash was still intact, which means it would have potentially died later on, which wouldn't have been able to kill the Amoonguss, so the power wouldn't have come into play, but hey, that's Pokemon. I feel like in this match, Hank kind of, I wouldn't say he outplayed Nips, but I feel like he made the better plays. But yeah, the crit was unfortunate, but at the end of the day, Nips still, you know, I think he still got the win. That sequence between Snorlax and Amoonguss, I felt like was a little bit, I don't know, redundant, and I feel like Hank potentially could have, you know, predicted a rest and just gone, let's bring in Infernape right now. And just do that. But then again, if he'd have gone into Infernape with Curse still intact, then he would have been plus defense and would have been able to kill with a close combat. and if he'd have got a sleep talk, got a body slam, then Infernape would have been potentially parried or dead.
Right.
So it just came down to, what Hank felt was his best play, which was just trying to get rid of those boosts. But I think well played on both sides. Unfortunate hacks, but that's what this season of the GBA has been so far. So continuing the trend. But anyway, Long Island Red Rockies picking up their first win, 1-0 victory over the Winnipeg Aquajets. Moving on to the fourth match from this week, we have the St. Louis Rampardos and their coach A-Drive against the Detroit Steelwings and their coach Crimson Seabad. And this is a rematch from week number 1. St. Louis Rampardos picked up a 5-0 victory in week 1. Did they do it again this week? Well, they won, but it was just a 1-0 victory this time against the Detroit Steelwings. And I feel like this match was an incredibly long battle. It came down to potentially timers at the end, and it was just an absolute stallfest, as things like Clefable was a great answer to Mega Sableye, and then you had Chansey was a great answer to Clefable, which then, was a great answer. Nidoqueen was a good answer for Clefable, which then brought back out. It just went in a circle again and again and again and again, just doing the same things, Moonblasting and Knockoffing and Soft Boileds over and over again, until eventually Gothitelle came in to take out the Chansey, but then Chansey took out Gothitelle. I'm really not 100% sure what Crimson was doing with that set on Gothitelle, because if you want to Toxic Stall the Chansey, you'd think you'd run Rest on Gothitelle, and it just died to Seismic Tosses and its own Toxic Recall as Chansey Toxic'd it on the switch-in. Not really sure what that was about, but Gothitelle went down to Chansey. The thing that was supposed to take out Chansey actually died to Chansey, which I thought was kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
But there were a few questionable plays. There were some nice switches on both sides as well, but there were a few questionable plays here and there. There wasn't much to this match. It just kind of things happened that you expected. There wasn't anything particularly standout in my eyes. It just kind of things took hits that they should have, and things died, and that was the match. It was like there wasn't too much standout, but Dan picking up another win, still undefeated so far, and proving why that Chansey Mega Sableye core really, really, really works.
Yeah, I think one lesson that we can take away from this battle is one does not simply Toxic Stall Chansey. But like you were saying, it kind of was a stally battle, which is not bad by any means. I mean, when you play that, you have to at least think out your moves, because one wrong move in your stall battle and you could break. So I don't want anyone to think that, we're talking negative because it was a stall battle. Stall still takes strategy. Like, it's still a strategy that you need to think to play.
Of course.
The one thing that I'll add to it is that there was a sequence at the end where Crimson really impressed me by making 2 double/pivot switches, baiting the Chansey in and brought Sableye in, then baiting the Mega Sableye in by bringing Clefable back in, and then predicting him to go back into Chansey and brought in for Alligator, and that if he would have had, I don't know, Dragon Dance and Crunch, he could have really won it from there. So it was one of those things where he made just magnificent plays. I was really impressed seeing that, and then it just didn't quite get over the hump where I felt like he probably could have swept up the remaining, I think, 4 Pokemon at that time. But it came down to Dan persevering and got the 1-0, and like you said, he's 4-0 now, and that's really impressive. No one can really take that away from him.
Exactly.
Now we'll move on to what I had anticipated as the match of the week, the marquee match, and that is the Utah Jasmine versus the New Orleans Pelipers. This, for me, are 2 titans of battlers going against each other. And the Pelipers actually pull away with a 2-0 victory over the Utah Jasmine. Now, this was a hell of a battle because it started off with John just predicting and fully in command with Calm Mind Raikou. And then all of a sudden, the as he quoted it, panic button of Tailwind Whimsicott came out, and they made a stampede back. It went from 2v6, I think, no, 2v5 maybe, back to 2v2. and so Cooper tried to bring it back. Unfortunately, just didn't have quite enough firepower to bring it all the way back. If it hadn't have been for Scarf Crocodile on John's team, he might have actually still won that. So it was a really well played battle on both sides. I know Cooper was kind of down on his play, but I think he really brought it back at the end. What do you think?
Yeah, again, 100% agree on that one. It was a hell of a battle. Very, very well played on both sides. I don't think Cooper should beat himself up too much. I think he still played pretty damn well. But the initial plays by John, the predictions, and Torrent and Polion coming through, I think was awesome. Some great plays on his part, predicting Roos on Zardex and able to get off a Scold and things like that. Those were some great plays. Setting up with Carmine Riker, which potentially could have swept his entire team, dying to a crit Earth Power, as it was set up. I think it was to +2, +3, I want to say. +3. So it could have lived an Earth Power from Nido King, but the crit took it out, unfortunately. But even then, he could have, especially with the matches that John's already had this season, Raikou going down to another crit, he could have just been like, oh, well, screw it, I'm done. Like, another bit of hacks just against me, no, screw it, I'm done. But he composed himself and he was like, you know what, let's still go for this, and he managed to pull out the victory, which was awesome. Also, shout out to Scarfed Aggron. Oh my goodness. Like, you have no idea how happy I was to see that. Like, I love Aggron, and I love unusual Scarfers. And that's just the perfect combo. And it actually took out a Staraptor. I was like, yes! Aggron, come through.
I'm just saying, I think that Raikou set was beautiful from John. Yeah. HP Ground, I think, Shadow Ball and T-Bolt. It pretty much just covered almost anything bar Blissey that Cooper could bring. And as we see on the roster here, he didn't bring Blissey, so there was really no check for it.
Precisely. Yeah, really, really awesome game. And, yeah, very happy. Very, very fun match to watch. Especially John's commentary. He gets very excited, which is very fun to watch. With that said, that's the fifth game from this week. New Orleans Pelicans picking up a big 2-0 victory over the Utah Jasmine. Moving on to the last match from this week, we have Shady Penguin and the New York Mankeys playing Old Man Tup and the Pittsburgh Piratas. And Shady Penguin continuing his winning ways, picking up a 3-0 victory over the Piratas. And this was a really, really interesting match. Some really cool sets on Shady's side, such as Gunk Shot Amberpom, which came through. I think Amberpom had been kind of, not necessarily written off, but it'd been kind of looked down upon in this format particularly. People saying, it's a bit of a one-trick pony and things like that. But Amberbomb really showing, it lived I believe it was banded Azumarill, lived a banded Azumarill Aquajet, and then just proceeded to gunk shot the Azumarill and just kill it, which was awesome in my book. Really cool to see that. But Tup did prepare relatively well. I think he just prepared for the wrong things. I mean, he had a few things, like he had HP Fire Mega Alakazam to take on Mega Scizor, which did end up killing it. But I believe it was Scarfed Azelf came through with a U-turn against Mega Alakazam. Just some solid prep on Shady's side again, which really proves, Shady's really proving his worth in the GBA this season, with some great prep once again. And unfortunately, Tup just didn't have the answers he needed to against Shady's team.
Yeah, I literally cannot add much to that aside from I think that Tup probably planned a little bit too much for the big threat that is Superior, because something like Crobat and Heatran, that combo together really shuts down any kind of variant. Like if you have run HP Ground Superior, it can't take on Crobat. If you run on HP Rock for Crobat, it can't take on Heatran. So I feel like maybe he just kind of prepared a little bit too much for him, but that kind of is what happens. If you plan for something and they don't bring it, it really throws you off your game. I think that he tried to battle back, but unfortunately, with the planning that Shady's been showing, it's really impressive. I was actually one of those people who wrote off Ambipom because I always saw it more of a revenge killer, which is kind of what Azelf does. So I didn't really see them both ever coming at the same time, which they both came at the same time and proved me wrong. So yeah, I guess with that, unless you had anything to add, we'll move on to the league leaders. Is that what we move on to next?
Indeed, yes, the league leaders. So the league leaders for this week. Once again, it makes me incredibly happy to say, Weavile is still number one for the Cincinnati Loudreds. Number one, 9 kills, 0 deaths, and a +9 differential. Said it last week, I'll say it again. A quick knockoff user and something it gets incredibly powerful. Ice Stab is awesome, and that's Weavile. So it doesn't surprise me that much that Weavile is in number one, honestly, because it's incredibly powerful and incredibly quick. And if you don't have switch-ins for it, like Miguel, it's going to pick up at least 1 kill, which is what it did this week.
The advantage of Weevil is because of its really high speed stat, especially in something where you can prepare for your opponent's speed. He has the luxury of running it adamant from time to time, which gives it that much more power on the knockoff. So that's really what's extra dangerous. And speaking of Pokemon that you can run adamant, Mega Pinsir is also one of those mons who is number 2 with 8 kills and 2 deaths, only notching, I think, 1 kill and 1 death this past week, but still up there at number 2 despite that. It's one of those Pokemon where you can run them adamant, and all you got to do is just the Aerialate quick attack and just call it a day. So it's just one of those mons where we talked about it before. It can either pick you off because you don't want to switch and let it get a Swords Dance, or it just gets a Swords Dance and sweeps through things. So we'll move on.
Exactly. And in number 3, we have, for the New York Yankees, we have Milotic, 7 kills, 3 deaths at a +4 differential, picking up 1 kill this week, no deaths, just picking off Cacturne with an Ice Beam this week. And Milotic, again, a surprising mon to see up in, the league leaders race. You think of it more as a bulky mon, but then again, when it has access to moves like Mirror Coat and, as we see this week, Ice Beam and things like that can potentially hit things super effectively, it's surprisingly powerful as well. It's not just bulk, it has power behind it too. So if used right, which it has been, then it's not that surprising at the end of the day that it's up there.
Especially with its other ability being competitive, so it definitely can be used offensively. But I'm gonna, I guess, go through 4 to potentially what were we talking?
13?
Number 13.
Yeah.
We'll talk about why we're going to 13 here in a second. But number 4, we have Victini at 6 kills and 0 deaths. It didn't show up this past week, so it didn't chalk up a death and a loss. Then we have a big jump, which we have Raikou at number 5 at 6 kills and 3 deaths. Mega Gardevoir at 6 kills, 4 deaths. Lucario, who, I guess we talked about a little bit earlier, was actually dropped by Cooper with 5 kills, 1 death. Mega Lopunny notching up 5 kills, 1 death also. Aggron with his surprise head smash on Staraptor with 5 kills, 2 deaths. And then I guess you want to take, I guess I kind of started it, but you want to take 10 through 13?
Then we have all with 5 kills, 2 deaths. We have Aggron, as he said. We have Chandelure in 10th with 5 kills, 2 deaths. We also have Chansey, Hydreigon, and Mega Sableye, all 5 kills, 2 deaths, but we only have 10 spots on the league leaders race, so, the alphabet is a thing. So you only see Chandelure, but Chansey, Hydreigon, and Mega Sableye all there as well. That Chansey Mega Sableye core notching up 10 kills between them, which is pretty crazy. I don't think people would have expected that. Even though they're not technically in the top 10, they're kind of still there. So still very much contenders for the league leaders race. Surprising to see that. Not quite so surprising is Hydreigon. that's definitely a mon you want to see in the league leaders race. But anyway, that's about it for the league leaders. We're now going to see how all this affected the conference breakdown.
Yes. I'll let you take the Ruby division, and I'll take the Sapphire.
Okie dokie then. So, in the Hoenn Conference, Ruby Division, we have the undefeated Cincinnati Loudreds up in first place. 4 wins, 0 losses, and a +7 differential. And in second, we have the Winnipeg Aquajets. 2 wins, 2 losses, picking up back-to-back losses with a +1 differential. And in third place, we have the Long Island Reggie Rockies, who did pick up their first win, and it was a big win, as it was over the Aquajets. Inter-division win is always a big one. 1 win, 3 losses, but still, even with that big win, they're still on a -10 differential, so still a hell of a long way behind both of the teams in front of them. But having said that, if Nips can pick up a win this week and Hank loses, they will be tied on wins and losses, and it will come down to differential. So if Nips can pick up a big win, Hank picks up a big loss, then he can move up into second. But then again, Malvone still a hell of a long way out in front with 4 wins, 0 losses.
Right. I mean, he can be really competing for that wild card spot, since when we move over to the Sapphire division, you have the 3-1 Real Marill at +12 leading the Sapphire division, followed by a very long distance, the San Francisco Giants at 1-3, notching their first win this week at -9, and then the Milwaukee Sawsbucks at 0-4 and -12. So there's still actually, if something happens to Hank, and Nips can win a couple, or Gio can win a couple, there's still a lot of potential for the wild card race there. I think that the 2 front runners of those divisions are looking like they're probably going to keep their state, but we'll see.
We'll have to see how it goes for Miguel, having picked up his first loss this week. Who knows if that trend can continue? We'll have to see. But moving over to the Sinnoh Conference, the Diamond Division. Now this one is very, very close, because we have, up in first place, we have the Utah Jasmine with 2 wins, 2 losses, and a +9 differential. And we see in second place, we have the New Orleans Pelipers, also with 2 wins, 2 losses, but with a +5 differential. Now, obviously, the Pelipers picking up the win over the Utah Jasmine this week. So again, a inter-division win is always a big one, and that is a huge, huge win for John, as he's only 4 differential points behind the Utah Jasmine now. And in third place, we have the Detroit Steel Wings, 1 win, 3 losses, and a -6 differential. So a fair distance between the top 2. And Crimson and the Detroit Steel Wings, but it's not unreachable. But I feel like it's not in Crimson's hands to make it there. It's in the Jasmine's and the Pelipers' hands to lose it. So again, the Pelipers and the Jasmine are yet to play again, and that match is going to be a big determinant of who can take the automatic spot into the playoffs for that one, and who's going to be fighting for the wildcard spot. Right,
they really have their own destiny in their hands. They can control it. So that next match, which I don't know when, but we'll get to it eventually, that will be very crucial. And then we'll move over to the Pearl Division, which is also looking very striated. We have the St. Louis Rampardos at 4-0, +10, which is craziness. That's phenomenal. Then we have New York Yankees at 3-1 with +6. So those are 2 really good teams over there. And then we have the Pittsburgh Piratas at 1-3 at -13, who they need a little work, but 3-1 to 1-3 with, what do we have? 6 or so weeks left.
Yep.
That's still a very manageable time to make it up. You just gotta get 1 win after another and rack up the differential. So it's looking a little less in Tup's control, as opposed to potentially Crimson's, where it's 2-2 and he's 1-3, as opposed to 3-1 and 1-3. But it's still manageable.
And also, I think it's important to note that the Yankees' loss that they have is against the Rampardos. So at the end of the day, it might come down to that interdivision win being the deciding factor between those 2 teams, which would be, kind of indicative of what this is about, pretty much, with these conferences and divisions. But anyway, also one thing I just wanted to point out as well is that the team with the highest differential at +12 is still the Real Marill, even though they have a loss. And the 2 teams that are 4-0 still have a lower differential than the Real Marill, which I thought was funny to point out. But anyway, moving on from that, moving on from the conference breakdown, we are going to take a look at next week's matches, the Week 5 matches you can expect. So, the first match that's going to be appearing on your screens in Week 5 is going to be the Cincinnati Loudreds versus the Winnipeg Aquajets. So, Malvone looking to carry on being undefeated, and can he pick up, well, I don't know if it can be called an upset at this point, if he picks up a win against Hank, as he's definitely proving himself 4-0 right now, and Hank looking to bounce back from his loss this week, really determined to come back and try and start getting some wins.
Yeah, it's well, I guess what's your prediction for that? You almost forgot to do your prediction.
Almost forgot predictions again. It's a tough one. Malvone's been playing incredibly well so far. The thing is, I think Hank played well this week. It was just an unfortunate loss, but I think he did come out kind of hungry to win, and if he continues that drive and that passion to win, I could see him winning against the Loudreds. I'm gonna go with the Winnipeg Coaches in this one. What about you?
That's fair. He's really shaken my confidence in him. I really had him very high in my book, and I still do. I still think he's a very capable battler in the GBA format. But I think this time I'm actually going to go with the Loudreds. I think that they're going to continue on. Weevil is still just such a giant threat. It takes on something like Mega Pincer. I think that it can. I think they can deal with the Winnipeg Aquajets team better than other teams possibly can. So I think it'll be difficult for Hank to win that one. But we'll move on to the Long Island Red Rockies versus the grudge match versus the New York Mankeys. The battle of the potential stealing of the Reggie Rocks. So who do you have for this one?
Oh man, I think, you know what I want to see? I want to see the New York Yankees win with Reggie Rock. That's what I want to see, because that would just be extra salt in the wound, and it would be glorious. But honestly, for this match, I'm going to go with the New York Yankees. I think Shady's preparation has been outstanding so far, and Nips has been somewhat overthinking his plays so far, and Shady has been very well thought through all his plays. So they're just kind of polar opposites with what they've been doing in their plays so far, and I think that's just going to show in this match again, and Shady's going to pick up the win over Nips.
I want the hype up for Shady to bring Regirock to be so real that he doesn't bring it. Yeah, I definitely think that Shady will pull this one out. Even really honestly playing potentially 5 against 6 because of the fact that we all know that he's going to bring Regirock. So I still think that his planning, like you said, has just been too spot on to not continue winning, personally.
Exactly, yeah. Moving on to the third match, we're going to see Steve and the Milwaukee Saucebucks take on Miguel and the Real Marill. Now, this is going to be a close match. Who do you have on this one?
So I'm gonna shoot the long shot on this one.
Ooh.
Because oftentimes Steve has this thing where he just gets wins that he shouldn't be getting, especially on seasons when he shouldn't be winning. I'm going to go with Steve, and that's going to be very controversial, but I'm going to go with Steve. I think that he will, especially with this new acquisition, which we'll talk about after this, I think maybe, just maybe, he'll pull it out. I don't have a lot of confidence in that pick, but I'm going to go with Steve.
Well, I'm obviously not as risque as you are, and I'm going to say that Miguel's going to pull out the win on this one. I think he's just going to be so determined to not pick up another loss. And again, his team prep's been very on point. Steve's has been on point as well, but he's just made some misplays and sacked things off that he shouldn't. And I think that might cost him against a player like Miguel, who's very good at picking off threats and getting himself in a position to win. As you said, like a great vision of the end game. So, yeah, I'm going to say Miguel to win this one.
So I'll say another reason why I think Steve's going to win, because I think it's just going to be too much for Miguel to try and kill Landers T. I don't think he'll be able to bring it upon himself to kill Landers T. So he's just going to lose to Landers T. That's what I'm going to say.
He'll let himself lose to Landers T.
Exactly. Is it my turn? Yeah,
it is your turn.
We have the San Francisco Giants versus the New Orleans Pelipers. Who do you got for this one?
Hey, I think for this one, I'm gonna have to go with John in the Pelipers. I think Geo could potentially pull something out with the rain and Mega Swampert and things, but if he doesn't bring the rain, then I think that John just kind of has it. John's team is just too much, and if Geo doesn't pull some kind of tricks or has something crazy up his sleeve, I think John, he can play safely and still take this match, I think. So as long as John plays pretty well, which he's been doing so far, if he just continues that on, I don't see a reason why John can't win this one.
For me, there are two mons that, if he brings the rain, I think to myself, good luck trying to kill, and that is Mega Venusaur and Raikou. Both of those mons, especially together against the rain, will just I think will just prove to be too much to try and kill. And I have to go definitely with the Pelipper's on this one.
Yeah, definitely agree on that one. Next up, we have I believe this is the fifth match. Yes, fifth match from this week is the Detroit Steel Wings are going to be taking on the Utah Jasmine. Sorry. Detroit Steel Wings taking on the Utah Jasmine. Crimson against Cooper. Who do you have in this one?
So this is a rematch, is it not? Yeah.
It is from week 2.
Yes, it is. I think that Cooper is going to come up pretty hungry to destroy some face, especially after losing and not playing well at all. Again, well, not at all, but at the beginning of the battle against John. And losing to the only other loss that he had was to Crimson and the Steel Wings. So I think he comes out hungry and he gets this one, especially with the new addition of Nidoking, that King guy. Yeah. How about you?
I agree with you on this one. I think Cooper will come out. He probably won't be as well. I don't know if you can call it risky what happened in week 2, getting paralyzed off a Thunderbolt from a Jolteon, but I think he's going to come out and have some kind of backup plan if that happens again. But I think he's going to come out with some kind of fresh plan that Crimson won't see coming. And yeah, I don't see a reason, unless he unfortunately gets paralyzed again or something happens, I don't see a reason why Cooper doesn't take this match again.
It's definitely very hard to beat someone twice in a season, because you have to come up with new ideas to beat them. You've revealed your winning strategy. They haven't revealed their winning strategy yet, so it definitely gets very hard to beat someone twice.
Exactly.
But with that, we'll have the last one, which is the Pittsburgh Paratatas versus the St. Louis Rampardos. Who do you have for this?
I'm gonna have to go with the St. Louis Rampardos in this one. I think that his wall core, Chansey Mega Sableye, has proven itself to be somewhat undefeatable so far. Not completely undefeatable, but somewhat. And I don't know if... I mean, Tup's going to prepare for that a lot, I would assume. But I just don't know if he has the things to be able to take it on sufficiently. And if he doesn't bring the right things, or if with the use of Dan's other Pokemon, tricking Mew, or any of his other things like Volcarona, I don't think Tup is going to be able to break that wall core as much as he wants to, and Dan once again is going to be picking up the win, I think.
It's really hard for me to go against Dan, and I'm definitely going to go with Dan. I think that Tup has some potential to break down the wall core. A physically offensive Fairy type does actually extremely well against the wall core that Dan has, but I don't know if Dan will let him get into position to allow that to be the case. I think that Heatran can possibly cause a lot of trouble for the wall core, but I think in the end, I think Dan will just have just enough planning to squeak this one out. I say probably like 2-0. I'll say 2-0 for Dan. Mm-hmm. But with that, I guess we'll move on to the last added segment that we had because we failed to cover it last week, and that would be the free agents. Free agents, and again, like I said earlier in the podcast, I guess you can call it. I don't really know. Whatever, in the recap. If you guys want to see us, I guess, give a little bit more of our opinion on how this affects teams and how this makes teams better or worse, let us know in the comments. We'll try and potentially make that a separate video as opposed to tacking it on to the end of this. But you also got to remember that I think after this there will be only 4 more teams that can potentially pick up Pokemon. So there might really not be that much to talk about. But if you guys want, we will do what you guys want. So with that, you want to lead us in?
Sure, why not? So the first one I'm going to look at is Spiritomb got dropped, and in comes Sigilyph for the New Orleans Pelipers. Join dropping Spiritomb, picking up Sigilyph, and that is quite the pick. Sigilyph is a very interesting pick actually over Spiritomb, but it can definitely put in some work for sure if he uses it right, which I'm sure John can.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It gave him another immunity to ground, which is good for his team. And it also, I didn't really see Spiritomb ever coming when he has Crocodile. So it was kind of just dead weight that he tried to pick up another Mon that at least gave someone else something to think about when they just potentially could spam Earthquake. The next one is, the next one's actually very big for me at least. You have the Milwaukee Sawsbucks dropping Donphan and picking up Lucario. That's a huge pickup because Lucario is a very dangerous Mon. We'll see how well Steve can use it. That does mean that Latios is going to be restricted to having Defog whenever it comes because now he doesn't have a Rapid Spinner otherwise. But Lucario is a hell of a pickup. I'm looking forward to seeing what Steve can do with it.
And also one thing I think it's important to note is, Steve said, I believe, on the initial draft at the start of the season, he wanted Donphan to make sure that Landorus Therian wasn't stuck in a defensive role, and now Landorus Therian may well be stuck in a defensive role. Not necessarily, we might still see him bring offensive, but more often than not, I think we're probably going to see Landorus Therian be stuck in defensive nowadays, now with this drop. But he has picked up a hell of a lot of power in Lucario, so I mean it's not the biggest loss in the world. So yeah, anyway. The third and final week 4 free agent pick is Claydol was dropped for Kecleon. It was from the Detroit Steelwings. Dropping Claydol and picking up Kecleon. And Kecleon is such a tricksy Mon. It can learn such a huge range of things with Trick Room and Magic Coat, and it has Protean, so it gets Stab, Shadow Sneak, Sucker Punching, Fake Outing, Shenanigans. It can do a whole range of things, and I'm curious to see if Crimson can pull off some interesting shenanigans with this Kecleon. It could really potentially benefit his team. Yeah, anything to add to that pick?
I love Kecleon. Kecleon is probably my favorite Pokemon of all time. I'm with you. I really want to see him use it very well. It gets T-Wave with Protean, gets Stealth Rock, so it's got a whole bunch of support moves. It's got great, it's got Recover for if it wants to be especially defensive. It's got 110% of Talonflame's attack stat. It's a great Mon. I love Kecleon, and I look forward to it being successful, hopefully. So that's all I have for that one.
Yeah. But with that, we are going to call it here for this week's recap. Thank you very much for watching / listening to this one that actually was a bit shorter than I thought it was going to be. But thank you very much for watching / listening to this week's recap. Join us next week for next week's recap when we'll go over the Week 5 matches that we mentioned earlier. I've been RhyQuinn. He's been Adam. You've been awesome. Bye-bye.
Love you.